The AP poll is out for week 13, and I think it's very, very important. I think there are a lot of blinking red lights on this week's AP poll. So walk through with me here. SMU's number 25. Jesse, I think we boiled this down earlier today. SMU controls their ACC championship fate, right? If they win Saturday, they are in the ACC championship game. Yes. All right. I'm going to take that to mean that SMU controls its college football playoff destiny. Now, I can't 100% guarantee that, but I can pretty much guarantee that. So Rhett Lashley and the boys, once again, in position to go to Charlotte. I think they got to beat Cal this Saturday, who just fired Justin Wilcox like 5 minutes ago. And look, I don't want to take anyone back to the COVID days. Those are dark days. But if you remember how it ended for Nick Rolovich at Washington State and why it ended that way, which I thought was kind of BS, and you remember the Brian Harsin era at Auburn, and you remember some of the stories around Brian Harsin at Auburn, who also never got a fair shake at Auburn. The fact that both of those guys are running the house at Cal Berkeley right now, it just amazing. Just only in college football. Not even only in America. Only in America in college football. So that's who plays SMU Saturday. Pitt is number 24. Georgia Tech's number 23. That's where I want to stop. Put on the e-brake for a second. I have it on good authority. These teams played yesterday in Atlanta. And the outcome was pretty definitive. AP voters looked at that and said, give me Georgia Tech ahead of Pitt anyway. I have no words. Tulane is 22, North Texas is 21, and James Madison is 20. All right, so let's still ask the question, because you know the playoff rule. The playoff rule is we take the 5 highest ranked conference champions, and then we take 7 at-larges. All right, so it's known that the Big Ten champ will be 1, the SEC champ will be 1, the Big 12 champ will be 1. That's 3. The big question that we have asked is, could there be a world where, let's say, North Texas wins the American, and they're ranked really high, that's 4, and then JMU wins the Sun Belt, and they're ranked higher than the ACC conference champ. So that's 5. That's it. And we don't have room for the ACC champ. Is there a world where that could happen? I'm still guessing no. But then Jesse, again, marched into my office earlier today and showed me the various ACC conference championship scenarios, tiebreaker scenarios. I threw up. I had no other recourse. I just threw up. Every other one of these conferences is going to have like this premier matchup. In the Big Ten, it's going to be Ohio State, Indiana, who are ranked 1-2, by the way. That's going to be a 1-2 matchup in all likelihood. Pending this Saturday, Ohio State and Michigan. We have that small matter to get through. And then we could have A&M, Alabama, or we could have A&M, Georgia, or Bama, Georgia. And that's going to be a great game no matter what in the SEC championship game. And for all the world, it looks like Texas Tech, Brigham Young in a rematch in Dallas. And I've just got this alphabet soup of mess in the ACC. So who knows what the ACC is going to spit out at us. But anyway, there is some drama there. USC is still at 19. That is significant. They didn't drop a whole lot. Now, the big question is, do the playoff rankings reflect the AP? Especially with those G5 teams. Do the playoff rankings reflect the AP? Jesse, to my knowledge, the college football playoff has not featured in their rankings so far 2 G5 teams from different conferences. They've had G5 teams in there, but like we haven't seen, there's Tulane at 22 from the American. There's JMU at 25th from the Sun Belt. Because then we'd kind of get an idea of where they have those respective teams ranked. Therefore, we would have an idea, if those teams won their conferences, of relatively how high the conference champ would be ranked. Hadn't seen that yet. So we'll see if that is reflected this week in the committee rankings, just like we'll see if, Southern Cal is still as high as 19 in the committee rankings. Tennessee's 18, Virginia 17, Texas 16. All right, there's Michigan at 15. Michigan's going into Saturday. They're going to play Ohio State. If they beat them, and I think that line was 11.5 as I saw, that game's in Ann Arbor. So yes, Ohio State, back-to-back losses, Still a double-digit favorite in Michigan's building. Yep. If Michigan wins the game, how high do they climb is the question. And do they go to the Big Ten title game, which I assumed was automatic, but apparently there's some tiebreaker scenarios that make it not automatic. But truthfully, those all are written in crayon, so who knows what's true. But if Michigan beats Ohio State, how high do they climb in the rankings? Hey, really quick timeout. We'll get right back to the video. Do me one favor. Make sure you're subscribed. It helps us keep the show free. It helps us keep the lights on. It helps us keep doing college football year-round, and we appreciate it. All right, back to the video. Like, everyone keeps thinking about these walls, like these little barriers, like, oh, you can't jump ahead of Alabama, or you couldn't jump ahead of Notre Dame. Of course you could. You could put them 7th or 8th. I don't know. OU's a 2-loss team. Notre Dame's a 2-loss team. Bama's a 2-loss team. As far as I could tell, if Michigan beats Ohio State, they'd have a better win than any of you. Now, you could talk about the rest of their strength of schedule. Okay, but we know that baked in already. They're already 15th. How high would they jump? Utah's 14th. I'm going to talk about Utah in a second. One of the most insane box scores you will ever see in your life. Ended up with a Utah win yesterday. Miami is at 13. Again, we're wondering, how closely do the AP rankings reflect the committee rankings? Vandy's at 12. I'm going to keep saying the same thing. Where does the committee have Vandy? Vandy ought to get a lot of credit for just body bagging Kentucky yesterday. Diego Pavia threw for half a mile on Kentucky, and they won emphatically. And that was a game that some people had their eye on as like a potential upset alert, us included. Nope. Brigham Young is at 11. Good win yesterday. Good win. Top 10, I want to talk about Bama for a second. I'm seeing some scenarios out there that I think are complete garbage. So if Alabama loses to Auburn, they're out of everything, and that takes care of itself. If Alabama beats Auburn and they win the SEC championship game, there are some people who don't think they would jump into the top 4. Guys, they're jumping into the top 4. The SEC champ is going to be one of those top 4 teams. So they 100%, in my mind, will have a first-round bye. They will be one of the top 4 teams if they beat Auburn and beat whoever they play in Atlanta. The real tricky part, according to the All-State Playoff predictor at least, is if Alabama beats Auburn, they go to Atlanta at 10-2, and they lose the SEC championship game. Apparently, the All-State Playoff predictor says they have like a 54% chance of making the playoff at that point. I want to tell you, in no uncertain terms, if an SEC team enters conference championship Saturday inside the top 10, and they lose and fall out of the playoff because they played in the SEC championship game, they will burn the conference to the ground. The SEC, Greg Sankey, may secede from college football if that happens. I struggle to see a planet where that is allowed to happen. The SEC's second best team, because they earned the right to play in what they would call the premier conference championship game in America. Now, look, 1-2 in Big Ten country this year is going to be hard to argue with, but still, that's going to be a top 10 matchup in the SEC championship game. And if you sit there and have the audacity to drop Alabama out after they were in going into that Saturday because they lost the game, I know a lot of times you figuratively say, oh man, they're going to riot. I really think they'd riot. I don't even know what building they would march on. I think they would riot. So 54%. Like, I think if they go into Atlanta, they're in. I think no matter who in the SEC plays in the SEC championship game, they're in. I don't even know what other scenario there would be. Notre Dame's 9. Check. We had argument back and forth about Notre Dame Bama last week, but everyone's spoken their piece on that. OU is 8. Check. Texas Tech is number 7. Now, here's another question to just ponder, because I've seen some disagreement back and forth on this. I really don't think there's a solid answer yet. Texas Tech at 7. First off, let's see where the committee has them. But what do you think is going to happen if Texas Tech wins the Big 12? Do you think they'd jump into the top 4 if Alabama were to, let's say, make it to Atlanta and they lose to A&M? Because remember, for a long time, it just looked like the participants from the Big Ten and SEC championship game are going to be the top 4. But then Bama lost to Oklahoma. They fell out. So there's this world now where Bama could play A&M A&M beats Bama. So you know the 1 and 2, you know those two teams are going to have top 4 seeds unless they lose. So you'd have the Ohio State-Indiana dynamic there, and you'd have the SEC champ there, but that would leave one spot open. That 4th seed there would be open, and at that point you got to wonder, would the committee put a Texas Tech Big 12 champ all the way up into the 4 seed, or would they put an at-large team like Georgia? Well, they would be a non-conference champ. Would they put them up there? Would Oregon vault up there? I tend to think if Texas Tech wins the Big 12 championship, they're going to have enough juice, given an extra data point of a conference championship, to jump up there. But that is very, very disagreed upon right now, from what I can tell. So I'm just kind of guessing on that. Oregon's 5 and Georgia's 4. Again, that's very important to note. Let's see what the committee says about that. But Oregon jumped up to 5, and it's very important if a non-conference champ's going to get a bye. It could be Georgia. It could be Oregon. Georgia's got a chance against Georgia Tech this Saturday. That's a ranked team. I think there's an outside chance that Washington could maybe be on the fringes of being ranked by the committee this week, which means Oregon could face a ranked team. Let's see what they do there. A&M, Indiana, Ohio State 3-1.